Is sex in your travel itinerary? It's one of the travel goals for a community called the Passport Bros, meaning brothers. It's a traveling community of upwardly mobile black men. Some are accused of going around the world searching for a more traditional and submissive wife. But is it all about sex and just a girlfriend for hire and then return home to humiliate black women in America? That's the controversy that we're dealing with.
I've noticed this big controversy in the US about passport bros, which are basically African American men getting their passport, heading overseas, dating the local girls, and expanding their dating options. Not sure really why that should be so controversial, as humans have been doing similar things for centuries, and I'm all for that. But I've noticed that the passport bros have been focusing almost exclusively on Latin America. And I love Latin America, I've traveled it extensively. Culture, food, music, people, times the architecture, beaches, huge festivals like Carnaval in Brazil. And I also love the Garotos do Brasil and the Chicas de Colombia. But in my opinion, they are making a huge oversight in terms of their travel destinations if they really want to date the most beautiful women in the world, the 9s and 10s, because Eastern Europe is the place to be. Let's get into it. Hi, Submergem.
SAR Experience.
So let me briefly run through more or less 5 reasons why this is the best region in the world to date. So Eastern Europe, in my opinion, having been to around 100 countries on this planet, has on average the most beautiful women. Now, it actually also has a good bit of diversity. Not the same as being obviously in Brazil in terms of diversity, but like here we are in Moldova, people tend to be brunette, not as tall as other parts of Eastern Europe. Like if you go to the Baltics War, you're going to find like so many tall blondes, the leggy blonde. You're going to find that in that region. And then recently I've been in Kazakhstan. It is Central Europe. I'm putting it on the extremities of Eastern Europe, but there obviously people are Asian, 80%. So it might be as diverse as, you know, Colombia or Brazil. There aren't so many black people here, or the United States, but you do have a diversity of look, and in general, you just have so many beautiful women. Can be hard to adjust to for a lot of guys who move to Eastern Europe, just the beauty effect of being here. Also, the cost of living here in Eastern Europe is probably around a third of the West. Of course, it depends where you're coming from. In the West, it might be as much as a fifth of the price, or it might be, you know, roughly half, right? And that does a few different things. One is like there's no going Dutch here, so obviously it's going to be a lot cheaper to date from that point of view. But socioeconomically, coming from the West, and we have female hypergamy, cross-cultural, also in Eastern Europe. I think it's actually a little bit more pronounced in Eastern Europe. So that is, hypergamy is when people marry across and up on socioeconomic hierarchies. And in general, that's a preference of women in general. And obviously, if you have higher socioeconomic status by coming to Eastern Europe, then it's also going to help you in your dating endeavors here as well. And here in Eastern Europe, because there's so many beautiful women relative to what they are hoping to date, which is the high socioeconomic status guys, that leaves a lot of beautiful single girls. More than you're gonna find in other parts of the world for sure. And because it has lower cost of living, and personally I enjoy spending my time in Eastern Europe, moving here allows you to get to know the culture, learn the local language, always a big plus, not obligatory, but definitely going to help you. And it gives you lots of time to get to know, the girls who are going to be the best fit for you and the most beautiful ones by developing your social circle. And in general, it is reasonably open as a society, as societies here in Eastern Europe, for a foreigner to come and integrate and create a very high level social circle. So there are the five reasons more or less that I would give for this being the best place to date on the planet. And mainly because those guys are visual, the fact that the women on average are the most beautiful is always going to be the biggest draw. On top of that, of course, you have a complete absence of obesity and overweightness, almost entirely under 35 years of age for women, and very few radical feminists. You might be able to find, there are some rare sightings of them, purpled hair, obese radical feminists, but they're pretty unheard of here. Even when people say they're feminists here, they're not the Western feminist type. So yeah, let's do a little quick comparison with some other places around the world. So as I just mentioned, lack of obesity, not so much radical feminism. Obviously there's a big contrast between here and the West in general, and that translates into the beauty on average as well. But I will say that there are pockets of the West where that is not the case. Like if you're hanging out in the high level parts of the West in, say, cities like London, Paris, Milan, New York City, maybe Vegas, maybe Miami to a certain extent, then that's not really the case. Like I have a client who also hangs out in the same circles with Leonardo DiCaprio's exes, you know, the kind of models who reach 25, and Leo, if you know Leo Zo, decided to discard them. So you can hang out in that kind of circle. Also, when I've been hanging out in London or in Milan myself, it wasn't too bad. But that is pretty rare, and it is hard to access those sort of social circles, obviously, in the West. And here in Eastern Europe, to go out and date, meet, party with the 9s and 10s, the barrier to entry is going to be a lot lower because, well, there are just a lot more of them here. I did that geeky video about what's a 9 and 10 in Eastern Europe relative to the West. I'll link it up above in a card down below in the description. And basically, yeah, socioeconomics also plays a part. Obviously, if you have relatively higher socioeconomic status here, that also helps in a big way in order to access the right social circles and places to go out and party and socialize in with the most beautiful women in Eastern Europe. I often also get a lot of inquiries from guys who live in Dubai. Now, I understand that the United Arab Emirates is a great place to set up a business, have as a base, low tax, but in terms of the dating scene, it is not fantastic. And I've been to the Emirates myself, and I didn't have a bad time there. But the reality is there are a lot of beautiful women who are hanging out in Dubai, and probably most of them are already with an uber rich guy, right? So they're not actually single when they're there. Maybe they're married, they're a girlfriend, maybe mistress number 3, I'm not really sure. A lot of them are also from Eastern Europe. And then, unfortunately, a lot of the other girls who don't fall in that category, who hang out in Dubai, who are super beautiful, many of them are in the sex industry. So probably not the best fit. So that leaves a lot of guys feeling like their options are pretty limited in Dubai. So I think for those kind of guys, probably good to set up your base, spend, I guess you got to spend 180 days there probably, but then the other 6 months you probably need to be spending over here and sorting out your dating life. So that's what I would say compared to Middle East. That's something that comes up quite a bit with, specifically with the United Arab Emirates. The other two regions where a lot of guys are going to as an alternative is Latin America and Southeast Asia. Now, first of all, Latin America. I love Brazil, so I have a little bit of a bias here. And I also love the Garotas do Brasil, as well as I said at the beginning, Las Chicas de Colombia. But overweightness and obesity is more of an issue there. And regrettably, I think just the level of beauty is not the same as what you're going to find here in Eastern Europe. There are other reasons to be in Latin America, especially when it's winter here in Europe. Obviously, the weather is a lot better in Brazil and Colombia at the moment. So I understand why some guys would put, you know, a base there for part of the year in Latin America. But I have clients who are over in Colombia at the moment, friends as well, and they're like, really, Connor? Why are guys talking about the girls here compared to Eastern Europe? There's no comparison. It's going to be one standard deviation away from what you're going to see here. So that is that there are a lot of good reasons to be in Latin America. I love the music, the culture, and you know, traveling around, looking at, seeing fantastic cities, the beaches, all this, especially when it's cold here in Eastern Europe. Although we did have the mildest, I think, winter on record almost this past one. And then we go on to Southeast Asia. And I think it's kind of the same thing. You don't have obesity so much in Southeast Asia. But again, the level of beauty, and I have nothing against Asian women. Obviously, I've dated quite a few, as you probably noticed from my videos as well. But really, again, I would say that you're just not going to, it's just hard to beat Eastern Europe in terms of beauty. I will say that for some guys that fall in the categories of maybe being a bit shorter, so if you're on the short side, I have a video about that as well. Then in Southeast Asia, just the average height is a lot shorter than in other parts of the world. Although that's changing. I see in Korea, actually, the average height of young men is almost caught up. But in general, yeah. If you're a shorter guy, say a guy is 170 and shorter, then probably Southeast Asia will be a good spot for you, because in general, women have a preference biologically for guys who are taller than them. You know, I put most of it in that other video I made. And then the other thing I think is, like, you do have kind of the overweight Western guys who can still, you know, they used to try and come here to Eastern Europe, but they're like, and try and find some young hottie to have a family with, to marry or whatever. But there are, you know, the reality is, like, if you're in your 50s and overweight and you think that a 20-year-old Instagram model is waiting for you here in, you know, in Eastern Europe, you're basically delusional and you're about 25 years too late to the party. But maybe on some island in the Philippines, that could be your reality. I see some other guys in who travel there and seem to have been successful doing that. So I'd say if you're in that category of guy, then maybe that's your last hope geographically, is to head over there. And if you're a shorter guy. So that's what I think compared to the other regions. I'm not knocking them entirely. There are lots of good reasons, as I said, to go to some of the other parts of the world. But in terms of just the standard of beauty and in general access to the most beautiful women in the world, then there is no way to beat Eastern Europe as a region overall. So we're back here at the Arco de Triomphe. You probably didn't know that Chisinau, Moldova also has its own Arc de Triomphe, not quite as famous as the one in Paris, and it is getting to the even time. The sun is just setting over there, and it's time to go out and enjoy the crazy nightlife of Chisinau, Moldova. And this is something that I've been doing with my clients, in particular over the last 8 months or so. Obviously, I'm filming this clip with the Russo-Ukrainian war still ongoing in neighboring Ukraine, and I am not taking clients currently to Ukraine, Russia, or Belarus. So I have been bringing my clients to here, obviously Moldova, Chisinau, also to Almaty, the Big Apple, almighty Almaty in Kazakhstan. Recently was in Riga in Latvia with a client, absolutely fantastic. And briefly I was in Warsaw in Poland. And you know, the Zara experience, how would I contrast it? Because obviously I've given an overview of why this is the best place for meeting beautiful women in the world, best region. You know, most guys who come here from the West, they presumably have a very touristic experience. They probably end up in the old town. There's no real old town here in Chisinau, but there is like a kind of foreign tourist pub that attracts a lot of guys like that, a beer kind of place. And you know, you can have your meter high beer along with your 300-gram steak in a very touristic place. Probably going to be lots of other tourists there or some foreign expats, and it's probably going to feel very familiar. But it's not going to be the real experience of Eastern Europe, and the super hotties are not going to be hanging out in those places here whatsoever. So if you're trying to avoid that, that's not what you want, then maybe the Zara experience in person is for you. And down below is an application form to the Zara experience. Now it is by application only. I vet everybody, make sure they're a good fit, that they're actually going to fit in, because the Zara experience is also about not just going out and clubbing and hitting the bars, the best places for you to meet the super beautiful Eastern Europe. It's also, you get access to my 10 years of knowledge in this region, and also partly to my social circle. And that is something that I guard very carefully. So I screen everybody before they come in the Zara experience. This is not a service that everybody, as long as they're willing to pay, will get in. It's actually only a very small percentage of guys who apply who end up living the Zara experience. And before you go and apply, you should check out 2 playlists that I put together. The first one will give you an overview of the cities, and there are some previous client testimonials there. Link it up above in a card, down below in the description. And then the second one, it will give you an overview of, you know, dating the 9s and 10s of Eastern Europe, so you understand the mentality and frame that you need in terms of coming here and understand how to demonstrate value basically when you come here to Eastern Europe. So go have a look at those two playlists first of all, and then down below is the application form. Some of my former clients have described me as the insider for Eastern Europe. And also, just recently, after we're in Riga, which was an absolutely crazy, fantastic weekend we had up there, the special forces for coming to Eastern Europe. So on that note, down below is the application form, and I look forward to reading your application very soon. And it could be you, it could be next weekend, partying hard here in Eastern Europe with the super hotties of the region. So I'm going to go out and enjoy. Chisinau. La rivedere, o sarò buona. See you soon.
SAR Experience.